Why is my drug plan premium going up so much? What am I doing wrong? This isn't fair. Before long, this thing's going to be a car payment, and I'm going to have to start robbing convenience stores in order to be able to afford it. And unfortunately, this is the thought on many of your minds now that many of you, if not all of you, have gotten your annual notice of changes from whatever company is covering your prescription drugs. And the bottom line is that news is happening all over the place. A lot of you are wondering why and where else can I take my business? But the answers aren't going to be as rosy as they used to be. There often aren't greener pastures to go. But the answer to why and what is to come is something that I wanted to cover in this video. And one of the answers why drug plan premiums are going up so much is because of the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. Get that. The Inflation Reduction Act is the blame for drug plan prices going up. Now, before all of you start going, the Inflation Reduction Act is the devil, and whoever passed that law should be deported. Hold your horses there. The Inflation Reduction Act has done some wonderful things for Medicare beneficiaries and will continue to do good things for the industry. Unfortunately, one of the byproducts in how it does its job is going to mean increased drug plan premiums. Little history lesson, here we go. So the Inflation Reduction Act did a bunch of things between 2023 and 2024, as you can see here. Vaccine copays eliminated for a lot of vaccines, insulin's limited to $35 a month, Extra Help, which is a program that Social Security has to help people with their prescription costs, that got easier to qualify for, and the 5% copay and catastrophic was eliminated. And if you didn't have to worry about that, don't worry about it now. It's nothing that had to affect you. The big thing that changed in the Inflation Reduction Act that caused a stir and was the result of these premium changes is what happened at the beginning of this year, 2025. Number one, all Medicare beneficiaries are limited to a $2,000 annual cap, and I'll illustrate how that works in a minute. And they also had this plan called smoothing. So if you had a really expensive drug in the beginning of the year and you couldn't afford to pay for it, they would give you the drug and let you make payments throughout the year. So a little payment plan smoothing. So it kind of creates a monthly maximum while the $2,000 maximum applies for the entire year. Now, the landscape of this means that the way drug coverage is calculated changed drastically. So before 2025, things were one way, and this is the way they were. In the beginning of the year, you had your deductible phase if your plan had a deductible. Most did. And the deductible phase, like any insurance deductible, is not fun. However, once you're past the deductible, you would wind up in the initial coverage phase. This is what most of you consider to be the normal phase. The initial coverage phase is go to the pharmacy, get a drug, pay a copay, leave. That's it. Now, the reality is that a lot of you never saw anything but this initial coverage phase, because if you saw nothing but a bunch of generics, this is where things resided for you. But if you unfortunately had a really pricey drug or a number of pricey drugs, you could find yourself in the donut hole. If you were in the donut hole previously, you knew it and you were part of that club. And the donut hole is where costs went from normal to horrible, and everybody in the donut hole hated it. Now, the other reality for this is that most consumers, as I said, if you're taking generics, never saw the donut hole. But a lot of people who saw the donut hole never got out of it, because this whole circus resets at the end of the year, and January 1st, the clock starts all over again. However, for those few consumers who hit the donut hole early in the year because you were taking some really pricey drugs, the kind where the price is measured in private islands, you could find yourself in catastrophic coverage where you got out of the donut hole and now your costs fell to a very, very manageable level, if not zero, in the past year. And the catastrophic phase was a nice phase compared to the donut hole, but by then you had had enough abuse. This is the way things used to be. However, at the beginning of the 2025 season, thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, this is the way things are now. So again, if your plan has the deductible, which most of them do, you pay your deductible, and it's not fun there either. Then you move to initial coverage phase, and the initial coverage phase is where you stay for the rest of the year until you get to a $2,000 max. Once you hit that $2,000 copay max, that's it. You're in catastrophic, and catastrophic has no copay, so this is lovely. Confetti rains down from the ceiling. This is a wonderful time to be. Getting to that $2,000 limit, once again, is something that happens by virtue of the copays that you're paying for your drugs. Now, one of the things to know is that the math that the government uses to determine when you get to catastrophic isn't actually cleanly at $2,000. I had a client who only paid $1,300 this year and hit catastrophic. Can't tell you why. I took the class twice. I still can't teach it. The bottom line is that it won't be beyond $2,000. Incidentally, for 2026, that limit is going to be $2,100. So for those of you who are taking generics, you really don't care because you're not going to get to $2,000. Not going to affect you. But for those of you who are taking pricey drugs, blood thinners, diabetic super drugs, anything that's got several $100 copays, this is music to your ears. But to show you how this works, I have a little example cooked up here. And basically, I'm showing somebody whose ordinary monthly drug copays are in the high threes to low fours every month. Now, this may or may not be you. You might be worse. You might be a lot better. But the bottom line is this is how it works. So somebody goes to the pharmacy every month for the first 6 months and they pay. And you notice that there's this year-to-date clock that keeps adding up. But eventually in June, it gets to $2,100. So I'm using a 2026 example, obviously. It gets to $2,100 and then that's it. And then for the rest of the year, you're still going to get all of the medication that you need, but at no copay. So here's the challenge. The supply chain from the manufacturer to the pharmacy to the drug plan, they still have to get the medication in your hands, but now you're not going to pay for it. So the question is, where does that money come from? And the answer is the money comes from partially increased drug plan premiums. It's one of those bad things that's a byproduct of how this works. Now, in addition to this, there is something else that's happening with the Inflation Reduction Act beginning in 2026. 10 drugs, these 10 drugs, are being proposed for drug negotiation. The federal government is going to negotiate with the companies that make these drugs to get the prices down to a more manageable level. Now, this is new. The federal government has never negotiated drug prices in the past, but in 2026, the effects will be felt. And it's not going to stop here. In 2027, an additional 15 drugs are slated for negotiation, and in 2028, another 13 drugs are coming in after that. These are all wonderful things for people who take these drugs. Again, if you're not taking those drugs, what do you care? But the bottom line is that those negotiations will make it even harder for those drug manufacturers to get those drugs to you, so the money's got to come from somewhere. So that's basically it. As you can imagine from what I'm telling you, these conditions are not likely to change anytime soon. Sometimes there are legislative efforts that are made that make things happen differently, but legislative efforts take time, a long time. Look at the Inflation Reduction Act. It's a 6-year deployment. These kinds of things don't happen overnight. So the bottom line is that the condition and the price and the availability of drug plans is not likely to change anytime soon. Rest assured, though, I am here in the trenches with you. I will help you shop and find drug coverage that is best suited for you. But unfortunately, the quality of what's being offered on the market today is not likely to change anytime in the near future. It's what we got, or we can all practice the Scandinavian national anthem, as I always say. So, sorry for the bad news, but it's what we got. It's the truth. Hope you learned something, and I'll be in touch soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.